Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's up, Mysonne Lennon?
What's up, Tamika Mallory? How you
doing today? I'm doing good. You know, I'm doing good. Got my Just Water. I'm brother Jaden Smith.
You keep you some Just Water.
I love my Just Water.
I don't got no water today. But I got my Actively Black.
We got our Actively Black. Me too.
Shout out to my boy Ish Smith, man. Look, man.
It's so good. I love this sweatsuit. I love the way
quality.
It feels.
Listen, make sure that you get you some Actively Black.
Yeah.
I'm black from the head to the toe today.
We support Actively Black. You know, I wear, first of all, I don't wear Nike. Let's be clear about that. But I wear some of the other brands for workout clothes. And by the way, I wear workout clothes every day. Every day that I don't have something special to do or a reason that I have to actually dress up. And, you know, I find that those clothes, those are cool. All the other brands, y'all know the names. We ain't giving them free advertising. But I feel proud when I wear Actively Black. So it still feels good. I still got some sexy leggings. I got the whole thing, my Pilates body and my Pilates clothes. I'm a little bigger than Pilates body. I need to work on that. But I still feel... you know, I feel good. I still feel good, still feel sexy, but I feel proud because this is a Black-owned company. We support Actively Black 100%. And right now,
200%.
Go and click on the links and go get you some Actively Black. Support them and also support Until Freedom. We need the support. We have merch. You can go pick up sweatsuits from us. They cool. They look good. They feel good. You can wear them with shoes. You can dress them up, dress them down, do your thing. But not men. Men cannot wear them with shoes.
I think
women can wear them with heels.
That'd be a dope collab, though.
We should think about that. We should
Until
think about
Freedom
that.
collab.
That would actually be
dope.
That would
Ish.
be dope.
We're going to hit you up, Ish. We're going to hit you up, baby. Actively Black Until Freedom.
Listen, so we got to move quickly today because we have a guest coming up that's going to educate us and, you know, we're going to learn a little bit of something. So I want to talk about my thought of the day. So there was a interview that I did a while back where I was on TMZ and Kamala Harris was selected as the vice presidential pick. And I remember I was in a car. I was on my way to Brooklyn to a photo shoot. And while I was talking to the folks on TMZ, they asked me, do you think that Kamala Harris can become president? Right? Do you think she can also be president? So she's vice presidential pick, but do you think that she can run and ascend to the presidency? And I said, I don't know. I said, because, you know, racism is terrible. So that's already bad enough. And sexism, when you bring that into the equation, it's even worse, right? So if you listen, and a couple of people started attacking me. They went crazy. Not a lot of people, but, you know, there's a certain segment. A couple people called me up like, I'm just trying to understand your perspective, because a lot of people are very sensitive about that racism and then comparing it with sexism. And it felt like I was including all women, white women, this woman, that woman, or whatever, over Black people and what Black people have experienced, and specifically Black men. And so I was explaining it to a good friend, and he was like, why are you, like, are you seriously trying to explain to me what you meant? Like, I'm stupid? Like, I understand exactly what you're talking about. It's not that I was saying that racism is not the most horrific, horrendous, disgusting atrocity of American culture. That is not what I was saying. What I'm saying is when you are Black and then you have, maybe, let's just use another example. You Black and you have a disability. Or you're Black and you are, I don't know, you're Black and you're trans. You're Black and you're whatever, poor. You're Black and. That makes what you experience already as a Black person worse, because you're adding another element onto it that really sort of deepens the hate and the oppression and the disgust that a person has to endure. And so when I look at Kamala Harris at that time, this is prior to right now, this is years back. Like, a lot of times we are ahead of ourselves when we speak on issues. So I'm looking back at that time and I said, that sexism is even worse. So what I was saying is that as a Black woman, not as a woman in general, even though you see Hillary Clinton also more qualified, didn't win the election, but that's a whole different set of circumstances. But when you look at Kamala Harris as a black woman, she's going to deal with being black, and then having on top of that, her being a woman as another way for people to disrespect, discredit, and even our own people, and let's just keep it 100, men in our community and women, men and women, but a lot more men who are unwilling to support her just because she's a woman.
That's a fact.
Right? Like there's some people who have policy disagreements with her. There's some people who they look at it and they like, listen, I have issues with Kamala Harris, with things that she may have done or things she said or positions that she supports right now. And I'm not arguing with any of those. But when I have people on my page calling her a thing, calling her a wench, calling her all these disrespectful names, and then I also see that there are people who could be helping her, but because of the way that you watch them treat women in general, you know why they are unwilling to support her, because they never, when I'm asking certain people, they like, oh no, they don't really have a real answer, okay?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to say to myself, right? Like how Snoop said, I want to thank me. I just want to say to me, I was not wrong in what I said, and it's playing out for us to see it happening in real time. And I know that when I spoke on it not just as a black person, but as a black woman who I even know in spaces where we're doing, in civil rights spaces, in social justice spaces, in business spaces, I know that I am treated a different way than some of the black men who are my counterparts, or black men who may not even be as effective or as progressive or as whatever as me. But just because I'm a woman, I deal with another layer of disrespect and of the sexism that is also ingrained in American culture.
Well, I have to agree, man. I've said the same thing, and I think shout out to Plies, man. He had to give an apology to black women because he didn't even understand the level of hate that black women have experienced. And I've listened to dudes just tell me, yo, she's a woman, she just shouldn't be leading. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's gonna respect her and this and that. And it's like, wow, why? I respected my mother. My grandmother was one of the strongest people I knew in my life. So when we have these conversations, there is definitely a facet of America where men do not respect women, and they definitely do not respect black women. Malcolm said it, the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected woman in the world is the black woman. So person in the world, not just a woman, the most neglected person in the world is a black woman. So we are able to see this in real time. So like when you said it to me, I understood exactly what you said.
I know. I was trying to explain it to. It was Mark Thompson. He was like, "What? Like, why are you explaining this?" Anybody with good sense knows exactly what you're saying. They are trying not to know, or their emotion. And it's funny because some of these same people always are like, "Oh, let's not move with emotion." And then when I speak to something that is my experience as a woman, then it's emotional. That's cute. But anyway, let us move on. This is a point. We're not going to do TMI because we got to go. So you go to your music segment. All right.
So we're going to go to my music segment. Shout out to Marvin Bing. We was out in Detroit.
Super organizer, Marvin Bing.
Marvin King Bing, man. He put us all together. You had a panel in Detroit with Ice Wear Vezo, Killer Mike, Pusha T, Beanie Siegel, Freeway. It was so many different people.
Nipsey Hussle's brother. The brother's name, it always escapes me, but I love him so much.
Black Sam. It's Black Sam. And we had a beautiful panel. Shout out to
Joteka Edie. We can't be leaving people out since you want to name
people. Say all the names. Say
Pastor Mike McBride. What's our other brother's name? Oh, Lord.
But listen, it was a dope panel. And there's a soundtrack. And the first song off the soundtrack is called Still Here. And it's the Vote or Else soundtrack. And it's featuring Benny the Butcher. It's featuring Jay Electronica, Freeway, Black Thought, Metal Feet, and Joteka Edie. Shout out to Joteka.
She wasn't singing on this, but the sis, she out here, she thinks she a singer.
Yes, she definitely thinks she can sing.
But she's actually speaking.
But the song is dope, and it's really touching. So make sure you go. It's on all platforms. Still Here is Vote or Else. and is featuring all the artists I just named. A shout out to Phil Agnew.
Phil Agnew. See, I knew it was somebody important, and Phil is our brother.
That is our
Yellow Pain.
Yellow Pain.
Yes,
shout out to Yellow Pain. It was
it was a powerful.
It was a very,
discussion.
very, very powerful discussion. My boy Smoke Dizza was on there.
Mm-hmm. And so much music came out. I mean, music is coming out of.
Yeah, it's gonna be a dope. I'm gonna be on the soundtrack. So, and Tamika's gonna be on the soundtrack too.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna talk to King Bing. King Bing.
Shout out to King Bing.
Not me, King Bing.
So make sure that you go and listen to that song, Still Here. The soundtrack will be out very soon. And it's a dope song. Still here.
That's what's up. And today we are joined by a super friend who has some information. I mean, as we've been saying, this election is really important for us. We don't really care who doesn't like it, right? We don't care who is not interested and who's mad at us and who said we shouldn't be and don't this and that. Go talk to somebody else, because we're really deeply into this thing. And TMI has really been turned into a show to discuss all the elements of the election for the next several weeks. And so in our super friend world, L. Joy Williams, who's joining us today, is somebody who, of course, is very special to me. And now, over the years, she's become special to you as well. President of the NAACP Brooklyn Network. And also, she and I serve on the board of Higher Heights, which is an organization that does a lot of political education and raising funds for Black women candidates. We do so many things. She's a consultant, super brilliant. You got all the things in this one woman. But what's important for why she comes here today is because Joy is an educator. And so she's created a guide for it says a journal for the empowered voter called Get Vote Ready. And so today we're going to be hearing from our sister, L. Joy Williams, and I'm excited about that.
Just her story, just when we're talking about the kids and
like, even though she's doing all this leadership in the community, she also is fostering several children at the same time. And
that's why I love doing this podcast, right? Because we get an opportunity to interview and highlight our friends who are doing so many dope things. So shout out to L. Joy for educating us about civics and about what it looks like to vote and what we need to know about voting. And they're also educating us about humanity.
Right. It is humanity when you I'm going to take, not only am I out here fighting for our rights, but then I learned that children needed help. And like she said, out of a personal situation came her story. So when people ask me, well, what's the first thing that I should do? I'm like, look at your life. Look at the things that are near and dear to you and make decisions about how you can get active based upon that. Because people who jump into stuff that has nothing to do with what they're really interested in, or because they get in it because they're like, oh, there's a check, or oh, there's or everybody else is doing it, I think I could do it better. And then you're in an area that does not really make you feel like you're getting to your passion, like you're serving your purpose. So there's that.
Yes, we definitely do have our sister L. Joy. She is an educator. She is a friend. She is one of those individuals that when you think of her, she's always smiling, but she's about business. So we have our sister, the one, the only, L. Joy in the building.
Yeah, L. Joy.
Oh, man, I love that introduction. I got to come here more often.
That's it.
Thank you for both of you for inviting me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us. Joy, tell us, first of all, let's just get straight on if NAACP networks, chapters,
branch.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So listen, we did not have a rivalry with Nan, right? It's just, we birthed everybody. No.
You see shade and shots already. That's what I love so much about you, Joy. Like, I think so many people feel like in the movement, we are just stoic and boring, and we're not. Like, we enjoy one another. We make jokes. We snap like we did at the house back in the days when we were kids, and we have a good time. And you're one of those people who, like my son says, you're always smiling, but you be serious as hell. You be scaring me.
You say that, and the electeds say that too. Sometimes they say
well,
they don't know the difference between if I'm coming and being like, "Hey, how you doing?" and like hang out, to like, "Oh no, what did I do?"
Yeah. Well, you coming in the tradition of our queen mother, which is Mama Dukes, Hazel N. Dukes, who is the president or the former. I saw somewhere the other day that I guess she's kind of
she said
she's 92.
Yes,
so
she said that she's not going to do it anymore as state NAACP conference president.
Okay,
but you know how she said
she in charge.
Yeah,
okay, got it. So tell us about your book, this guide for, you said, a journal for the empowered voter.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're speaking into people, because I don't be feeling like people that empowered. So, talk about what your journal is all about.
Well, one of the missions of what I do, with Sunday Civics, which is every week I sort of use what's happening in the political landscape to empower people with the knowledge to get involved and engaged in politics. Because as you know, part of our work as organizers, the first thing we do, particularly when we're going into spaces, is helping people understand how the system has worked, where, who the decision makers are, and then what you can demand, what you can do. And in starting Sunday Civics, I realized that was a lot of, even in working inside government, I would still go into spaces, whether it was in the controller's office or the city hall or whatever, and I would do the back door and I'm like, okay, this is what you need to ask for. This is what's possible. This is what can happen. This is the person you need to push. And I realized that is something we take for granted a lot, that everybody knows, like who the decision maker is, what I should be asking for. And that's why I started Sunday Civics. With the Get Vote Ready journal, notice as we go through the journal, there's no emotion in it. There's no, one party over another party. It is helping you make a strategic decision for you to prepare yourself and make sure you have the information to engage in the election. And then 2, starting with yourself and not with the candidates. You start with, in the book, what are the issues that matter to me? What moves me? What is the, kitchen table issue that I'm most concerned about? Then you go to the candidates based upon those issues to determine, okay, now which one most aligns with where I am.
Right.
So based on this book, what was what made you say, what, I really need to make this book? What made you sit down and say that?
Two reasons. One, you can always go to family. So this is for my cousins who call and text me on election day to ask me who we voting for. Or to ask me, when is the election again? Or, they got there. They may know, okay, I know who I'm going to vote for mayor. I know who I'm going to vote for president. But then they get there and they be like, it's some question. Right, like there's some question on here. That I don't know nothing about. And to my dad, God bless his soul, who literally he would call me, Tamika, from the voting booth.
I've made those calls.
Right. And I'm like, Dad, you can't call. You're
not supposed to. That's actually illegal.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I hear him arguing with the people in the poll booth. And I'm like, because they're doing this job.
Right. You're not supposed to do that.
So this is for them.
I took a picture and sent it to somebody and said, I'm waiting, text me back what I'm supposed to do. And that's illegal. You're not supposed to take a picture of the ballot.
Yes.
I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I done took a bunch of pictures.
So this is for them. This is for, my cousin Candace and them, so that they have, okay, this is my journal. This is my guide to prepare myself before I go into the voting booth. And it's designed and meant not for me telling you what to do, but for you to put together prompts and questions and spaces there for you to contemplate, what matters to me might be different than what matters to you.
That's a fact.
Right? And so it's space for you to put that and then to, teach you this is how I should engage in a political process, in the election process. Not so much to be swayed by celebrities. And I know that's the thing that everybody, my favorite celebrity endorsed this person or did not, right? But no, they're voting their own interests. They're voting their own money in their own pocketbook. This is how you vote and make your decisions for you.
I got to really get into the book. As soon as I saw you promote that it was ready, I called immediately.
Yes, you did. I was like, did you even read?
Listen, because I know it's necessary. Because even though this is a very contentious time, and let me tell you, I am so ready for November 5th to come and go. My spirit and my stomach and literally my body cannot sustain 2 or 3 more months of all this arguing and people writing crazy and you falling out with friends and family. My cousin and I was in a big blow up about this at a family occasion. We ended up being back love, but still we had to go through this like really difficult conversation. And the one thing I realized is that civics 101, like basic understanding of politics and electoral politics and all of that, a lot of our people don't have it, and it was done on purpose to us. And we have to really understand that it's not that you don't know just because you weren't paying attention or you're not smart or whatever. It's literally that it has been designed that we would not know. And that for me it almost makes this moment, while it is incredibly stressful, it makes it like I'm glad that we have this type of race where people get to pay attention and start asking the questions, even if it's the most ignorant conversation you ever been involved in.
Yeah.
So I know you had to be like, oh no, we're not going to do this.
Right.
We're going to learn something because this ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, not only that, and that this shouldn't be the only one that you do, because the work that you all do, right, Until Freedom, and talking about the district attorneys, talking about governors' races and things, those are where we need to get engaged. And that's one of, I said to someone recently, it's something I say all the time, when we throw back to the modern civil rights movement and talk about the right to vote, particularly in the South, people is like, oh, we got the right to vote, and that's it. That's what our ancestors died for, the right. And I think we do a disservice by not following that, not giving context and qualifying that, and saying they weren't just dying to be able to go in the booth.
That's right.
Right? They wanted to elect sheriffs, district attorneys that would protect their communities that they were building, that weren't members of the KKK, that weren't members of the White Citizens Council, and would actually prosecute people if someone came through and lynched their brother or their cousin, right? They wanted, just think about Brown v. Board and the original cases that led up to that. They were paying into a system that weren't properly providing resources for their children's education. And so they wanted the ability to be on the school board to say, okay, our schools need a bus. Our schools need proper books and materials, right? And so they knew, that generation knew that it was tied to their vote to be able to elect people that were making those decisions. And we lost that. As you said, it was deliberate. We lost that knowledge that these things of depressing our communities were tied to these elected positions, that we needed to be in those rooms and we needed to be, have our voice in those rooms, even if we weren't the ones elected. And so that's what I try to do with Sunday Civics, is to remind our communities, right, that this isn't just about electing somebody popular that looks like you.
That's right.
This is electing someone that will listen to you, that is responsive to your advocacy efforts, that has the wherewithal to come back and engage with the community or be within the community, and understanding those tools and how to exercise, right, that civic bone that we all need. I think it's really, really important.
So, I want to ask you this, just based on local levels, right? Like, what do you think the most important elections that people don't even really focus on? Because I know there are certain elected officials that control so many different things financially, the resources within the community, the programs, all those things. What do you think just on a local level? Because everybody's going to talk about the president, the man. Like, what do you think as a person that just goes to work every day, that lives inside a community, what are those jobs that you think in civics that we should be focusing on voting for?
I'd like that you brought up that point, because it depends on where you live. And that, and that's why I provided the space for that, because in some places, depending on how your town, how your city is incorporated or structured, the power of the budget, may be with the county executive.
Right, not the city council.
Not the city council or or the mayor. The mayor may be a ceremonial and he sell carpets on the weekend.
Right.
Right. right?
Or something else.
Or
so, that's that's a whole
right?
different day.
And so that he's just there as an administrator, or she's just there as an administrator. So part of that education is also understanding that you start local. Don't start at the top. Don't start at president. Don't start at governor. Start local. How is my town incorporated? And where's the seat of power? Is it the city council? Is it the state legislature who has control over the issues that I care about and about my budget? Like, who makes those decisions? My brother lives in an area over in the Poconos, incorporated a little differently than like us here in New York City. And he sits on a board that makes decisions about the town's, money on whether or not they're going to do sidewalks or they're going to invest or whatever. Those things are important. And once he got on there, he was like, oh.
This is like the real, like something really this is not rules that just come from the sky. There are people attached.
Right. And there's regular people that are my neighbors that are sitting around the table making a decision and no one's ever there. Right? But they're making the decision, and he may be at a barbecue or something and hear people complain about something and not realize that, oh, that is a decision I made, or didn't make. And so that's, I think, what's important is looking at how your town, how your area is incorporated. And I provide examples of that in the book of like how you can find that, out, and learning what is the seat of power in that instance, because particularly nationally, everybody focuses on the big cities, Chicago and New York, and the top 100 cities, and more than likely, a lot of them are incorporated the same or organized the same. There's a mayor, there's a city council, or there, some balance or whatever. But people live in a lot of different things, and you could work in one area that's a town or a county and live in another one that's rural, and it's a group of your neighbors who are making those decisions. And so that's why I think it's important for you to understand. And it may not be that you're going to engage daily, right? You're not going to be me and Tamika, and you're going to be every event, every protest and things like that, and every town meeting. But at least the issues that you care about and things that you care about, and understanding who makes those decisions, where the money comes from, who's it directed to, is important. And you can look at some of our poorest states, like Mississippi and places like that. If you look at how money and contracts bounce back and forth, it's like the same people. Just is like, oh, you got it for 2-3 years, and then we're going to vote for it like over here. Meanwhile, you have some of the worst education outcomes. You have some of the,
most violent
utilities, all of that kind of stuff that are depressed. And so that's why it's important for people to understand that.
So what is there a portion of the guide that the journal, I want to call it a guide so much, but the journal that, because I guess the guide tells you what to do, the journal gives you the opportunity to like write things and think through the process. So I got it, trying to get it right so it sticks. Is there a part in there, or at least can you speak to when you don't like either candidate, right? And you're like, I don't want to vote for none of these folks. But yet somebody gonna be in charge. So what would you say to that, or is that in the book?
Yeah, that's a very, very important part, and it's something I just talked about on Sunday, because that's one of the things that people give pushback, right? They both crooks. Like, I'm not voting for neither one of them.
Right.
But elections, and if, again, you take the emotion out of it, and even those of us who are celebrating, that it's the first Black candidate or the first Black woman or whatever, let people experience that. That's
right. Stop trying to tell
you don't need
people
to,
that's not okay.
Let them experience that.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. Right. If you're on another wavelength, that's cool, right? But then it's what candidate, and I lay out 4 ways to decide to pick a candidate for yourself. But ultimately, you're deciding where can I push progress forward and do the least harm to my community.
Harm reduction,
right? Like that is the thing. But I lay out my 4 steps of picking a candidate. 1, again, you start with yourself. What are the issues that matter to me? And then looking at the candidate's records, not who you want to be on the ballot, but who's actually
on the ballot,
right?
And who can really win?
Yeah, and then decide, okay, which of these candidates, most aligns with my values, because nobody is going to align 100% unless you run it.
That was a bar.
Like, unless you run it,
was a bar.
nobody aligned.
And even then, you might have disagreement with self,
right?
Especially when you realize that a big part of politics is about compromise.
Exactly, and that's knowing that. Is important. So
That's
after right, you say, okay, based upon what this person said, what their track record is, this is who most aligns, this is what their record is on the issue. The other thing is, who are you more likely to move, or your advocacy efforts be receptive? Like, are you going to elect someone that's just like, I don't care, I double down, right? Like, this is what I believe,
that
not
you don't even
what
have access to anything.
Right. And when we say access, we're not saying like going to the White House and flag surfing.
No.
Right.
Right? Like, we're not talking about that.
We're talking
love
about
that,
where you have people inside the administration that actually got hired to do jobs that you can have a communication with and say, hey, that's close inside of that administration and say, hey, look, these are the issues that we're dealing with in our community.
Right.
And they know you and they can relay that message to your elected official and probably get you some type of meeting or get something to actually materialize from, you actually making this vote.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes because you're speaking as a person who's very close to the top of the food chain. So you can make the call. But if you're Johnny and you live in a certain community, you might not be able to make a call ever that gets to the people you want. But you can be a part of joining with others that have that power and pushing, because there's power in numbers. So when we say we're going to Washington about gun violence or women's rights or whatever, ceasefire, whatever the issue may be, you need to be able to say, I can send out tweet, text, a MailChimp, whatever, all the different things, phone calls, and there's gonna be 100, 200, 1,000 or more Johnnies from a particular community that will be there. That's how we build power. And a lot of people, because they don't see themselves being able to call Kamala or call whoever, Joe Biden, whomever even if it's your mayor, because they can't make those phone calls, they feel very detached. Yeah. Now, one phone call you can make, and one place that you can walk into anytime you want is the campaign office and or the district office of your city council person,
your state
legislator, exactly.
Your congressional member.
You can walk right in the door, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Because we know you go in there every other day, send letters, write. They will have to respond to you because you are a constituent in their district versus you trying to talk to President so-and-so.
And I think that's important because you're evaluating, is this person responsive to those advocacy efforts?
Right.
Are they doing a press conference and they saying, I don't care how many people come to my office, I'm voting this way? Or are they like, after deliberation with constituents in my community,
after I got my ass kicked,
right,
and got embarrassed,
or even got better understanding of the issue, because we assume that politicians know everything about every issue, and they do not. They half of them don't even read.
We went to Washington. We walked 250 miles from New York City to Washington D.C. with Carmen Perez and our family at the Gathering for Justice League, and why did you join us? You did. You came somewhere. You was at the beginning. Staten Island is where most people met us. Okay, so when we got to Washington, the last part of the march was to do our advocacy day, where we went and talked to all the legislators, and these are congressional members. I'm not talking about we went down, like you said, to Alabama to talk to some. No. We were in Washington, D.C. at the Congress. Baby, we were having to tell congressional members what their colleagues in Congress have on the table in terms of bills. They did not know. They had to be educated. They were like, oh, we were bringing them together. We've done that. I know you've done it in Albany, in the state capital of New York, especially around, for us, it was around raise the age. Yeah. When we had to go shut it down, like completely bust into the meeting, like, what is the problem up here?
At 2 a.m.
Yeah, so people think, you were basically living up there dealing with these issues. People really think that these folks know and that they're smarter than you, or that they just had the courage to go run.
Yeah.
And they could raise the money.
And if they're experts on an issue, it's probably one or two.
Facts.
It's not on that. It's not.
And
on
all
everything.
of us are in that situation. Although the internet would have you thinking,
you know everything.
You know everything, bruh.
That's what I want to ask. Does it frustrate you just watching misinformation, just being this civically engaged and knowledgeable? Does it frustrate you on the internet just seeing people just say things that are so outlandish and seeing people grab onto it like it's actually fact?
Let me tell you something. This is when I feel the most old.
Yeah.
Because I scroll through and I'll see stuff and the old woman responses come out of me. Now, you know that don't make no goddamn sense.
You start sounding like Hazel for real.
Right? And, you know, I'll tell, again, my cousins or other people calling me and I'm like, use your common sense.
Just common sense.
Now, why would that, like, now, why would that happen? Just think, like, let's think that through for a second.
What you're saying.
Right. And, you know, it's the same thing I use on my kids, you know, and I'm like, let's think about this a little bit, you know, and play it out and see how. So that kind of thing does absolutely frustrate me. But it's also.
But you're a person that you can't take stupidity. It's like, it really doesn't, it aggravates you to the point.
Oh no! And I'm come from a long line. People that my grandmother, who I'm actually named after, Joyce, would say that, like, you say something or whatever. Just why would you just bring stupid into the house? like it was a cancer or something. And so that it makes it extremely difficult because there's so much things that are true. To fight against, to engage, that when you make up stuff, it's just like, you don't even got to make up.
You don't even have to make
because
it up.
You don't have to make it up.
that all the time. Like, I could find you 5 things that's true
that
we should be challenging about whichever candidate, including Kamala Harris.
Yes.
I got 5 or 6 things, and you want to make up some story about, you talked about celebrities and their impact. We just finished talking on the show about Janet Jackson and like how she's like, well, I heard that her daddy's white. Like, sis, what?
Right.
What are you? We heard some things about you and your family too.
And we still rock with you.
And we also try not to spread it as intelligent people who have the best interest of all of us in mind.
Yeah. And, you know, and one thing I say about, you know, as you're saying, issues that you even want to address with a candidate that you support, you know, and I always say, I say it to electeds to their face, I look forward to protesting you. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I look forward to, like,
we say this all the time.
Right, and being engaged and visiting, right? Because it's part of, and literally, I have said that to Kamala, and she was like, come on.
Right? Gotta do what we gotta do.
Let's go. Because that is your role.
That's my
right?
role.
Like, that is your role, to educate me on the process. Every photo line that I've been in, I've talked to her about, like, something else. And she has said, she's like, every time Joy come in here, she got something else, some other people, whatever. And to people like her that are committed to public service in that way, it's just like, that's your job. That's your role. Right? Like, I understand where you are coming from, and it's not coming from a malicious place. It's coming from, that is your role. My role is here. And often we intersect, and we may be on different sides on different issues, and then we can come together on, you know, on different things.
Absolutely.
And I think we have to think about those we elect as our utility players, right? And that, you know, you pull them in when you need to, you rally against them if you need to. But going back to that harm reduction, as you mentioned, is really important. And then the last one is thinking about the political landscape. What is happening?
That's the one.
In the country. What is happening in your state? What is happening in society? And based upon who's running, their record, their disposition, is this the person I want to lead during this time?
That's the realest thing. And I want to just say, we always say that. We say we're not fighting for allies. We're fighting for a better opponent. Yeah. Right? That's who we elected. We want to elect the best opponent because we understand that in government, you're going to make decisions. The government is going to have different, you know, ideologies and understandings and have different point of views and needs that they think. And we represent the people and have to make sure that we argue on behalf of the people all of the time. So if we understand that process, then we should always feel like we have to challenge our government officials always. But what I want to say is this whole ideology, like, you know, I've just become civically engaged in like the last 10 years. You know, I'm from the hood, so I really didn't pay that much attention. But there's this ideology in the streets that either we shouldn't vote, right? We shouldn't vote, or, you know, just mainly we shouldn't vote. I'm not even going to say the or, because that makes absolutely no sense, even though shouldn't vote makes no sense to me. But what do you tell the person that says they're going to sit home and just not vote?
Yeah.
So we're not going to vote for the third party?
I got to answer to that too.
Because there was a whole thing, there was a thing today where, you know, it was on the Breakfast Club when Angela Rye was talking to Jill Stein, and she asked her a lot of questions, and there was both pushback. So I want to hear your perspective on another party, you know, and then the people that say don't vote.
Okay, this is where I might get a little nerdy. So I'm in community all the time, you know, in Brooklyn, and I get that question all the time. Either I don't do politics, or voting doesn't matter, the system's rigged, and all that kind of stuff. And it's something that I address all the time out in the street. One, I never start with, as an organizer, I need you to come out and vote. I never started that way. I always started where people are. Like, what do you need? What's happening?
Concern?
What's your concern? Sort of in that way. But even when I do get to the point where someone says, I don't do politics, we shouldn't vote anyway because it's, you know, all rigged, then I ask the question, then what do you do? Like, you know, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? And more often than not, you know, people might say, oh, I volunteer here or things or whatever. And I was like, what is the reason you have to volunteer for kids to have food for lunchtime? Because there is someone making a decision that those kids don't need the resources for them not to eat. So you not doing politics, meaning those kids don't have another advocate to make sure that they are eating and their bellies are full for them to learn. So you're depriving those kids of your voice.
Yeah, you're actually going against what it is that you actually want to do.
Yeah.
Counterproductive.
Right. And then talking to people, which is, I think, you talk about is deliberate of taking civic education.
Right.
It's also deliberate that we took the word power and political power out of civic, because civics is like, oh, let's go like volunteer at the library or pick up trash, or like it's like these passive actions.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than it's about control and wielding your political power, right? Me, you, and others in our community coming together are a powerful voice to push back against money-grabbing landlords, right? Like us, so they diminish.
Super local.
Right, super local. We're diminishing because people are afraid of the power. And that's what you're doing with voting. Wow. That is what you're doing with organizing. You are collectively coming together to wield your political power. And in Brooklyn NAACP, I go a step further, where I tell people we're doing an action in Brownsville and stuff like that. I was like, come with me, let's build Black political power, right? And see what we can do with that collectively in the state, on the city level, and then, you know, on the national level. That is scary to people, that people would come together to build Black political power. We've seen that all throughout history. And so helping people to understand that this is about power. Yeah. And part of your vote, that's when I talk about that political landscape, is where will I have the most power? Right? Not only in pushing this elected, this advocacy or what have you. So then when you get to the third party, will I have power if I vote for a party that can't get the 270 electoral votes?
Do you believe, like we do, that it's time to create other options, like viable options to open up our political process?
This is where I get a bit nerdy, because this is part of the problem. I don't have a problem with like folks like Jill Stein and others or whatever running. Do you, whatever. What I have a problem with is that because these are state-by-state processes in terms of ballot access, getting on the ballot, and we have defaulted to two parties, not only on the national level, but on the statewide level. And so you have to break that stronghold of two parties in order to get to more viable options. There's absolutely no reason why Hillary Clinton and AOC should be in the same political party. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no, like from a political ideology
and depending on how you feel, you might want either one of them.
Right, depending on whatever. Right. But there's no reason why Bernie Sanders, right, and
Barack Obama
are in the same political party.
That's right.
It does it doesn't
coincide. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
And it really turns people off because the messaging is mixed, and it seems like there's a fight going on.
Yeah.
But internally.
Right. And that is because we've defaulted as a country to a two-party system. Mm-hmm. And in order to get to a more representative thing, we do need to break that stronghold. Mm-hmm. And that comes with changing state laws and changing the national process. And that's hard work that people don't want to, accept. So, you could say, I'm the third-party option, but that is hard to do. That takes much more money. And the person that got the closest was Bernie Sanders, right? Mm-hmm. But he also did it using one of the major political parties. Right. He didn't use the third party.
Right, because it would never have worked.
It wouldn't have worked.
And we know that. Listen, I know we have to wrap, but we could do this for a while because there's
so
so
much.
much.
Do it again too.
Yeah, there's so much to learn. One, I want you to tell folks where they can get your book.
Sure.
But when you do that, the next thing I want to ask you about is your own advocacy, like your personal advocacy with your husband has been to take children into your home who are in the foster care system. And all of us, that's why I always tell people, we don't have to do things the same way. You don't have to sit in your home right now and say, well, I'm not going to do what Tamika Mallory does, or I'm not going to do what Eljoy and Mysonne do. You can figure out your own ways to impact so much of people's lives who need help. And you all have taken on children who need homes. And I just want you to talk a little bit about that process and why you all decided to do that.
Yeah. So first of all, you can get Vote Ready on Amazon.
The journal.
The journal for the Empowered Voter. And I say Empowered Voter because you are already empowered, right? We don't have to give you power. You already have it. You just have to learn how to harness it and use it for yourself, your family, and your community.
Absolutely.
So you can go to Amazon and search Get Vote Ready Journal. It's actually number 2 right now, and it just debuted.
That's it.
It's number 2 in political advocacy.
People are thirsty.
It's a great thing for someone who may be voting for the first time or not a regular voter or even a prime voter. You know, like it's a really good exercise, I think, into, okay, let me go through the process of making sure that I'm engaged. And it's for any election, not just this one. You know, so it's something that you can use for that.
Love it.
The second piece in terms of what my husband and I do, it started from a personal space. It started from, a family member needing care and the government, ACS showing up saying, we taking a baby. And I was like, taking who baby? Not like, and I said, no, we're going to take care. And then, once my husband and I started that process and realized how many other, young people are caught up, particularly Black and brown children, right, are in the system. And a lot of it is because of poverty. A lot of people, children are taking because of poverty.
Not because they didn't love the child.
Not because of, and they classified neglect as, oh, you don't have enough food in the refrigerator, or do you have a stable place that just because you're couch surfing or something like that. Like, there's so many different reasons why children end up in the system. And it's not to say that there aren't very real cases of neglect and abuse, because there are. But there's a large portion of it, it is because of issues of poverty. And then after that family member, who's now, permanently with us, we kept our license open. And so far we have fostered children, their parents are under 25 or 25 and
so
under.
You chose that area. Right.
Well, it just so happened to be. And, when I talked about, like, one of the things I say in a photo line to the vice president, every time I talk to her about foster care, right? And even though it is a process that is governed by states, it is a national crisis.
Yeah.
And certainly that was exacerbated by COVID. That needs to be addressed in terms of the resources, because it's an ongoing cycle. Just our brief time of 10 years doing it, we've seen the vicious cycle of a young person in care, they not having the adequate supports or resources, they then become parents sooner than they need to be. And then they don't have basic supports to be able to support. So now their children are taken. And it's sort of an ongoing cycle from that standpoint. And so we really have to focus not only as a state, but as a nation in how we are addressing the needs of people 25 and under in this country. Because we, for a lot of things, we leave it up to just the parents. And what happens when there are no supports, or the parents need additional supports in order to continue to raise them and engage for their livelihoods.
Well, Donald Trump said you just need a day to purge and just beat them up when they steal. You know, just beat the kids up, they steal. You rough them up real violently, and then everything will go back to normal. So I guess that's how you do that.
No.
That's not. I wrote on your page how I feel about that. It was
You
some
definitely did. It was definitely some what we call expletives.
Because I'm just so tired of it. But I just want to thank you, L Joy.
Yes, L Joy,
for coming to be with us today.
Book.
Get this book. It is the Get Vote Ready journal.
Yes.
The journal
you gotta do the
for
work.
the empowered voter. And I hope that everybody who's like, what do I do? How do I do it? Instead of us becoming so anxious that we disengage because you're just overstimulated, there are actual tools, and I believe that your book is a tool. Let me touch it so I can feel it and put a little bit of the blessing that I have on it, you know, that there are real people who have sat down and said, let me help you so that you are not anxious, but you're actually ready.
That's right.
Ready to go.
That's why we got smart friends.
That's it. Well, you know, she's one of our, I said she's a super friend.
Yeah.
A super friend. L Joy Williams, the president of the NAACP Brooklyn branch, but also so much more, and also an author here. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, L Joy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
So with that said, we're going to go into my I don't get it. Since we're talking about civics, you know, and I haven't really said anything about the Eric Adams charges because I don't really know a lot about it, right? But I read the indictment, and then I read the article that I read today, just talking about, you know, what he's being accused of, and just getting a breakdown. And I don't get how someone who is an elected official, right, and they have lobbyists. I've heard about having lobbyists, and they lobby for certain things, and they lobby on behalf of certain things. And, you know, the elected officials, the campaigns are funded. They have dinners. They raise money. And all of these things are supposed to be that you build a relationship with the elected official, that, you know, that you advocate on behalf of yourself. And now, when it seems to me, right, because I've heard this a few times, that every time there's a black elected official, those things become criminal, right? And I'm not saying it is because I don't know all of the intricate things, like we don't know all of the evidence, we don't know all the things, but it actually seems to me as if you being close to an elected official, you know, raising money on behalf because you want to see that person in power, that you believe in that person, and you having a relationship which puts you in a position to where you can say, hey, these things are wrong in our community, or these things we need in our community, and him being able to advocate on behalf of you, now is something that's illegal. It's a bribe. So
I'm glad you being vulnerable.
And I'm not, listen to me, and I don't know, and I don't agree with Eric Adams on a lot of things. And we just said, you know, we push back. And I've had, you know, if you look at our Drink Champs interview, I sat down and I explained to him the things I didn't agree with. But as a man and as a black man, I understand that it's hard, especially in politics. I've watched this situation happen. This is not the first time. This is not the second. This same situation I've seen happen to like 4 elected officials, black elected officials. Right. So I'm really don't get why the threshold. Right. Why the criteria for advocacy and fundraising and things seem to change when black officials are involved?
Yeah, it doesn't change. And that's why I said I'm glad that you asked, because I think, as you said, that TMI is a forum and should be for us to educate people, but also sometimes we just don't know. And when we don't know, we should not feel like, oh, we can't talk about that because we don't know. No, it's okay for us to say, I don't know. And so here's the thing. First of all, yes, there is an attack on black elected officials. We see it happening all over the country. What's our sister's name in Maryland, in Baltimore? Marilyn Mosby. She is on house arrest right now for something that is completely asinine, right? Using her own money in the purchase of a home, her own money, not stealing from the taxpayers, and making a mistake on the application. Even if the mistake was something that some people will say is intentional, she says that it wasn't. In fact, she says that it did not even happen the way in which it has been portrayed, especially in the media. But now she's on house arrest. And, I think it's asinine. You now see that Angela Asselbrooks, who's running for Senate also in Maryland, she is being accused of not registering her grandmother's property the right way, which looks very, to me, as an oversight. But nonetheless, she's also experiencing this. You see Brian Benjamin, who has never even purchased marijuana, okay? This is a man Brian, as our friend, he's probably the cleanest clean person I've ever met in my life. I know Brian, and you know Brian, and we've looked at his evidence, and we've looked at all of that, and this young man's life has been destroyed, even though he's rebuilding and he will be fine. But for the moment, Brian, as the lieutenant governor of New York State, who was about to go on and become the governor, right? He was definitely going to be the governor. There's no question about it. He could raise the money. He had the relationships. He had the posture of not being like he'll say, I'm a black capitalist, right? And that's something that he and I have gone back and forth on. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, when he says I'm a black capitalist, I know there's some people who like to, who are looking at more their interests in politics. They're like, okay, I could get with him. He's not the liberal, super progressive, against people making money type of person. So he did all the things right. He checked all the boxes, and still they took him down over something that, when you look at the evidence, first of all, they've had to walk back some of it. And second of all, the individual who was accusing him was a white man who's deceased now, but also he was somebody who was a criminal already in trouble for some other things. And Brian seemed to become the fish that he could give to the prosecutors and to the United States, the feds, basically, to... Why can't I get the U.S. Attorney's Office to get them to maybe back down off of him, or just to ingratiate himself with the system? So this goes on and on and on, and we could keep going. Kim Fox, this one, people running for office and people in elected office all over this nation, black people. So cool. The charges for Eric Adams, if there is evidence for those charges, real evidence that sticks on him, they are charges that are serious. Because number one, it's not that it's just people advocating for themselves the way that you and I do. These are business folks. These are not community advocates who are like, oh, I want to see more community centers and whatever. These are people who are making a lot of money. And by the way, Turkey specifically is not on a good list with America. I don't want to give the wrong title, but I know they're on some list of like not being our friend, or not being a nation that America has a strong relationship with. Mm-hmm. So when you're in relationship with them, and then they are able to do business with the city, and then they said that the fire codes in the building that they wanted were not up to par, and it was like 90 different issues, and they claimed that Mayor Adams called the fire department over and over, even after they declined to give them the building, and they made it happen. This is what they're saying. I'm just, so if there's evidence to prove that, if there's evidence to prove it, then we will be able to see whether he was actually involved in these things that they say happened for 10 years or a longer period of time. The main thing, though, which is the same kind of issue, or the same charges that they brought against Brian Benjamin, is the straw donations, which is the $10 million that they speak about, where they say he stole $10 million. And it's also the way that the media talks about these things. It stole $10 million, makes you think that he siphoned it off and put it in his bank account and spent it on his family and friends and was out partying with it. But what they're saying is that these connects that he had in Turkey. They had relationships. They took their relationships with other people, gave them money, and then those people made donations on their behalf to boost their support for him so that he would be indebted to them. And, and so I look at that, and if there is, like I said, real evidence for it, I can see why he would be in real trouble. Now, he says that the allegations are lies and it's a bunch of slander and things that's being made up or that is being blown up to make it look like he's running some type of criminal enterprise, which, by the way, there's all kinds of investigations flying around his office for different things. A couple of things I know is when I look at people who are also in the administration, like David Banks, who's the chancellor of New York City Public Schools, and also Sheena Wright, and just a bunch of people there. I could go on with the names. These are people that I know, especially the two that I named. I know that they would never be involved in a criminal enterprise. I know that there are many people within that administration that they would never, ever, that's just not their character. It's not who they are. And I could say that. And if I was ever proven wrong, I would have to come back and say, I apologize. But I know that these are people who that's just not that's not what they do. The Banks family is just not what they do. So with that being said, we have to, before we start talking about step down, resign, all of this, we really do have to be able to see whether or not this evidence is true and is tried and tested in the court. Because my perspective on this is, even though Eric and I have many different things that we disagree on, his support for Israel and unfortunately the way in which he either will not even address the Palestinian community or the way in which it's almost like he mocks it. I don't like that. I don't support that. I don't like his consistent support for police officers that we believe are rogue and disrespectful and harmful, very dangerous in our communities. This is true. So there's a list of things that I could sit here, like we said, you don't got to make anything up because there's a list of things, a laundry list. But I also want to challenge those people who jump up and they're like, oh, that's it, you out. I want to challenge those people. You want Pookie, though, who goes through, who gets arrested and all of that, to be able to go before a court of law and for the evidence to prove they're wrong. But then when it comes to him, we want to have a different standard. And that's something that you can be mad all you want with me, but I just don't support it. I'm not mad at anybody who says, we don't like Eric Adams, never did, and therefore we feel that this is a moment when his leadership has been shown to be like ineffective and he needs to step down. But I do think that there is something to be said about these investigations that happen to be going on all across the country to our black elected officials. I'm not with it. So there's a side of me that understands what you're saying, but then there's also a side that we have to be very clear that the charges against him are not a joke. They are serious charges.
No, and I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, based on what I was reading when I read the article.
Article you're talking about an article that says that the charge, like it's an overcharge, like it's an overreach, which is the same thing they did to Brian Benjamin.
It's because it basically described what exactly happened to Brian Benjamin. So when I'm listening, I'm like, well, this is the same thing that happened to Brian Benjamin. And it's like, and what they say, the main thing that they say about these cases, that there has to be quid pro.
Quid pro
quo. My fault.
I can never say
pro
it.
Quo.
Yes.
Quid pro quo.
No. Quid
pro quo.
Oh, yeah.
So the main thing they say about these cases, they have to be quid pro quo. And that means that there has to be an established agreement between two parties that if you do this, then I'll do that. Right, and that's what has to be established, and based on this,
and they couldn't establish it for Brian Benjamin, not really at all.
Not at all.
Trash.
There was no, not really at all. All they had him doing was actually just giving the grant
to the organization
for him to do what he does with the kids. There was nothing that you do this and I'm gonna do that. Right. So, and what I'm saying is this.
And the judge said that. Let's just be clear that the judge was like, where is the quid pro quo? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't see it.
When I'm reading this article, they're saying the same thing. They say, okay, most of the time people do things for elected officials. If this is the elected official that you're trying to get in, then you're going to try to get everybody.
But you can't take, but the law.
But the law says that you would have to know. That's where quid pro quo comes in. I would have to be aware that something's happening. If you decide, you one of my constituents, right? You want to make sure I'm running for mayor. You want to make sure that I get it, and you go to the whole block. Like, listen, we need to donate to my sons, and you get everybody and you rally them up, and they all donate, and they come from you and this and that,
right?
And you decide I don't have any.
Well, but the problem
I haven't
is,
promised you anything.
Yeah, but the problem is, well, I mean, but still, again, it's all about evidence, because if you allege that someone knew or that there was conversations between a staff and team members where they were coordinating that, it's one thing to rally up your community. I remember one time I said to an elected official, I can't remember who it was, but I said, oh, okay, you want my mom and dad? I didn't know. I didn't know. So I said, oh, my mom and dad. I said, oh, well, I'm not going to make them spend their money to donate for you. I'm going to give them money. And the elected official, I can't remember. I know it was a man, but I cannot remember who it was, stopped me immediately and said, it might have been Jamani, stopped me immediately and said, that is illegal. You cannot do that. Absolutely not. And if your parents are to give me, it has to come from them. You can ask them to donate to me, but that's fundraising. But you cannot fund them giving me money. So again, that would be something where there would have to be evidence of it. Now, we can speak to it as it relates to Brian, because with Brian, we know from talking to him directly, we ain't talked to Eric about this, Eric Adams, the mayor, but we have talked to Brian. We know that he had, if it was done, he don't know a dang one thing about it, was never involved in anything like that. So I'm sure that is this, maybe that's, I don't know where Eric's, I'm not going to try to deliberate his defense.
I can't tell.
But that would be a problem, that you cannot give people money to give. And it's not just being around somebody, my son. It's also a person, like one of the things I saw in the evidence is they're saying, like, okay, you wanted to go on a plane, and instead of you paying $15,000, which is the cost of the ticket, you're paying $1,000. Now, should people, and it's a lot of people that don't even care about that, because I don't care about that. Like, that doesn't move me at all, because I do understand that if I'm in relationship with you and you have the ability to give me a deal on a plane ticket, I don't see anything wrong with that. But the law says that is illegal.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that
the law says it's illegal.
You've taken on somebody funding you
a fare. Yes, you can't do it. And if you, now you can, like, you can't even go out to dinner. I cannot take, we have many friends in the administration. When we go out to dinner, they have to pay for themselves. They cannot even take a dinner from us. Now they could take it from me as a friend, but you know how you applied to the city for, which ultimately puts me in it, but you applied to the city for the youth centers and all of the youth operations that you do in Newark, you trying to do it here in New York. Well, as soon as that application is in, you no longer, because now that would mean that you are providing favors for something in return. Now, because I'm friends with these people and there's clear evidence of us partying together, you two hanging out, they know we are friends. I might pay the bill at dinner, and that's okay. But even then, depending on when it is, what the conversation at the table was, because if the next person who's sitting, if the production crew, this gentleman is sitting there and he said, oh, they over there talking about whatever, you can't even do that. So it has to be very, very, you could be talking about twerking and whatever else you think, and that's cool. But as soon as you say, well, we put this application in for the city, and we're trying to figure out that becomes that elected official has to pay for it. And the reason why they do that is to cut back on people being able to pay to play. So,
well, that makes sense. So what I will say is that
I'm with you with the everybody black thing, though.
But it's definitely everybody black. I said this the other day. Black man down bad. Black man down bad, man. It's like when we look at the news, it's just being taken down from all angles, man. And I want to give the benefit of the doubt, right? I want everybody's case to try out in court,
right?
I'm not convicting anybody. People are like, why you don't speak on Diddy? Why you ain't speak on Eric? Because I don't know what happened with Diddy. I know I spoke when I seen what happened with Cassie. I spoke about it. I said that it was coward coaching. I said that I didn't condone that. I said whatever he had to deal with for that, he should need to be held accountable for. But everything else, I don't know anything about, and I'm going to let it play out in the court of law. And I would think that's what men's supposed to do in this situation. Just like with Eric Adams, I don't know what he did. And I'm not going to sit here and pile on another black man who's dealing with whatever he has to deal with, because I would want somebody. I went to trial for my life, right? And I was facing a bunch of time. And I blew trial for a crime I didn't commit, and I had to deal with that, right? So I understand those realities. So don't come to me and ask me to pile up on another black man about something that I don't know about. I'm going to let that man have his day in court. And if he's found guilty, then he'll be held accountable. But he's not going to be held accountable for me because I'm not the judge or the jury in those situations. And that's why I have this segment called I Don't Get It, because I didn't get it. So you gave me some education about certain things.
Well, there are some people who will say, well, what about Tory Lanez and why was that different, right? And what I would say is, first of all, we were looking at the case. We were looking at the case, so we knew a lot more details than most people knew, because we were actually we were like out there looking and calling around trying to find, like, because for a woman to like lie on a man and say that he shot her, that was something that really disturbed me. Like, I was really like, nah, this can't be. Yeah. But so we were looking at it. But one of the things that I did, if you ever go back and you look, I never said he did it or didn't do it. I just said stop lying and saying that she wasn't shot, because she was, and she was being antagonized. And after I did my due diligence and my research, it became very clear to me what was going on and what happened to her. But what I can appreciate about you is that you did say, after you first was like, he did it, because, you know, sometimes we get passionate and overzealous. You said, you know what, actually I'm wrong for posting this, and I'm gonna take it down because it was wrong for me to even come out here saying these things without this man being able to go through his day in court.
Yep, and it was wrong. And I said that as a man, and I learned from that situation, even though that's how I felt in my heart, even though I knew certain things about the situation. And when we watched things play out in court, it was like, you know, a man got caught with the gun. He did this, and I heard the videotape, the audio tape of what was happening. I like, there were certain things, and then I watched when he said her friend did it and then said she didn't do it. Like, I literally watched and said to myself, I've seen this behavior before. So I made my decision based on that, and I was willing to stand by it. But I still didn't want to come out publicly and say what I said. I was frustrated, and I was watching. I felt like the woman was being antagonized, and I was trying to stand up for her. And I moved in a way that I normally wouldn't move. Mm-hmm. And I apologize for that as a man. So moving forward in this situation, I'm going to give everybody the same grace, because I have way less information about these cases than I even had about that case. Right, yeah,
because we literally was online digging for court documents. You know, we were calling people
and I was having a dialogue with Tory and just explaining to him, and just the way that he carried it to me was wrong. And, you know, I don't wish jail on anybody. You know, I'm hear a lot of things that he's doing things for inmates in jail, donating to their funds. You know, hopefully he comes home and he's more successful. He's learned from whatever mistakes he made in the past. I do not wish jail on anyone in the world, but I understand that there are consequences for your actions, right? And you need to be held accountable. Yeah. And if you did something, then you got to deal with it. And as men, we fall down, we realize we made mistakes, and we get back up and we move forward. So, you know, I just want everybody to just move in, just understand we dealing with a lot of dark forces right now. There's a lot going on, and black men are under attack. And I keep saying black men are down bad. So I'm just saying, just hold the complete judgment, right? You cannot like somebody. Say that you don't like somebody, but just hold off from piling on, right? Because when you pile on to somebody, you know, and you don't know what's going on, and you just completely convict, it's hard to eat that crow.
Yeah,
you know, it's hard to
say I was wrong. But I mean, you know what? I feel as a woman, I feel many different ways, and this is not something that I have not said directly to Puff, to others that are close to the situation. After not just watching the video of Cassie, but also listening to some of the stories, it's disturbing. That's it. It's nothing else. It is disturbing. It's painful. My heart goes out to Cassie, because even in the midst of all of this, while it may seem like, you know, justice is coming, she still suffered and experienced something that I watched happen with my eyes on that videotape that couldn't have been the first time. It just couldn't have been. That's the way I feel about it, and I have no problem saying that in public. Nonetheless, I know how these prosecutors work. When they give you an indictment, baby, the charges got stuff in it that you like, whoa, what is this? How is that? Oh, and they make it, you know, because even having 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant or whatever, now, while that may give you some type of thought about what could be happening, it's not illegal. And I don't believe that a jury is going to be like, oh, that's it. That's the convicting thing.
And that's what happens with social media.
But that's how we know from reading indictments documents, that's how it works. So when you actually get court documents and you are in court and you can hear what is being said and how information is being translated, that's when you start to understand like what it boils down to, what is the real truth in the end of the day. So that's what we all will see and have to wait to see, not just in that case, but it's a many of them. I mean, we got this.
It's a plethora, man.
It's a lot going on. But anyway, so we out of here today.
We out of here, man. Once again, shout out to our TMI family. Make sure you hit us up and DM us. Let us know about what topics you want, who you want us to interview. Tell us we number one. Tell us you love us the best. Tell me that Tamika is always arguing me and I'm always right. I want to be right all the time. So we appreciate you. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika's not going to always be wrong. But we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace. I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.